The rain drummed against the windows of Sullivan's Diner as Jack Harris wiped down the same table for the third time, his calloused hands moving in practiced circles. At 35, he'd been working double shifts for 6 years straight, ever since Melissa died and left him to raise their daughter Emma alone. The lunch rush had ended, leaving only the familiar hum of the coffee machine and the distant clatter of dishes from the kitchen. "Daddy, can we sit by the window?" Emma's sweet voice cut through his thoughts. At 6 years old, she had inherited her mother's golden curls and bright blue eyes, but her curious spirit was all her own. She clutched her worn stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hopscotch, against her chest. "Of course, sweetheart." Jack smiled, his fatigue momentarily forgotten. These stolen moments during his break were precious. 30 minutes where he could just be a father, not a struggling single parent counting every penny. They settled into the corner booth where Emma always liked to sit, watching the busy street through rain-streaked glass. Jack had packed her favorite sandwich, peanut butter and strawberry jam, while he nursed his black coffee and picked at a day-old muffin. It was all he could afford, but Emma's happiness made everything worthwhile. "Tell me about the princess story again," Emma requested, swinging her legs beneath the table. Jack was about to begin when the diner's bell chimed. A woman entered, shaking raindrops from her platinum blonde hair. She was stunning, tall, elegant, wearing a designer coat that probably cost more than Jack's monthly rent. Her green eyes darted nervously around the nearly empty diner before settling on their table. Without warning, she strode directly toward them, her heels clicking against the worn linoleum. Jack instinctively pulled Emma closer as the stranger approached, but something in the woman's desperate expression made him hesitate. Up close, he could see she was young, maybe 27, with flawless skin and the kind of beauty that belonged on magazine covers, but her hands trembled as she reached across the table. "Please," she whispered urgently, leaning close enough that he could smell her expensive perfume. "Pretend I'm your wife." Jack blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, what?" "There are men looking for me. Dangerous men. If they think I'm just a married woman having lunch with I and her family, they'll pass by." Emma stared wide-eyed at the beautiful stranger, Mr. Hopscotch, forgotten in her lap. Before Jack could respond, the woman's hand found his across the table. Her skin was soft, warm, and her grip desperate. "My name is Alexandra Reed. Please, I'll explain everything, but right now I need you to trust me." Through the window, Jack saw two men in dark suits approaching the diner. They moved with purpose, their eyes scanning the interior. Alexandra's grip on his hand tightened. "They're here," she breathed. Jack made a split-second decision that would change everything. He squeezed Alexandra's hand in return and leaned forward, playing the part of an attentive husband. "Emma, honey, say hello to Alexandra." Emma, picking up on the adult tension with the intuition children possess, smiled shyly. "Hi, Alexandra. Do you like my rabbit?" Alexandra's smile, though strained, was genuine as she looked at the little girl. "He's beautiful. What's his name?" "Mr. Hopscotch. Daddy gave him to me when Mommy went to heaven." Something flickered in Alexandra's eyes. Pain recognition, something deeper. The men outside paused at the window, their gazes sweeping the diner's interior. Jack forced himself to remain calm, cutting Emma's sandwich into smaller pieces with practiced domesticity. One of the men pointed toward their table. Jack's blood chilled, but Alexandra surprised him by laughing, a light musical sound that seemed completely natural. She leaned in as if he'd just told her something amusing, her performance flawless. "You're good at this," Jack murmured. "I've had practice," Alexandra replied, her smile never wavering even as her eyes tracked the men's movements. "Tell me about your daughter. Keep talking." "Emma's 6. She starts first grade next month. She loves stories about princesses and wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up." The words came easily, his pride in Emma overriding his confusion about the situation. "A veterinarian. That's wonderful." Alexandra turned to Emma with genuine interest. "Do you have any pets?" Emma shook her head sadly. "Daddy says we can't afford one, but someday when he saves enough money, maybe we can get a kitten." Jack felt heat rise in his cheeks. Their financial struggles weren't something he liked to broadcast, especially to someone who clearly had money. Alexandra studied his face for a moment, and he saw understanding there. Not pity, but recognition of a fellow fighter. "Sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for," she told Emma gently. The men had moved on, disappearing down the street, but Alexandra didn't immediately release Jack's hand. Instead, she seemed to study both him and Emma with curious intensity. "Thank you," she said finally. "You saved my life." I don't understand what's happening here, Jack admitted, his voice low. Who were those men? Why are they after you? Alexandra glanced around the diner, ensuring they were alone except for Pete, the elderly cook, who was dozing over a crossword puzzle in the back. It's complicated. My family, they have certain expectations, arrangements they want me to fulfill. I've been running from those expectations for 3 days now. Arrangements. Jack's jaw tightened. You mean like an arranged marriage? Something like that. Alexandra's laugh was bitter, though it's more about business than marriage. My family sees me as a commodity to be traded. Emma, who had been listening with the intense focus children brought to adult conversations they sensed were important, suddenly spoke up. My daddy would never trade me. He says I'm his greatest treasure. Alexandra's composure cracked for just a moment, her eyes brightening with unshed tears. Your daddy is very wise, Emma. Jack studied Alexandra's face, noting the exhaustion beneath her polished exterior, the fear she was trying so hard to hide. Against his better judgment, he found himself wanting to help her. Look, I don't know who you are or what kind of trouble you're in, but this diner isn't exactly a safe haven. Those men might come back. You're right. Alexandra straightened her businesslike demeanor, returning. I should go. I've already put you and Emma in enough danger. She started to slide out of the booth, but Emma's small hand shot out to stop her. Wait, you can't go yet. You haven't finished your story. What story, sweetheart? Alexandra asked, confused. Every princess has a story. Daddy tells me stories about brave princesses all the time. What's your story? Alexandra looked helplessly between Emma's expectant face and Jack's concerned expression. It's not a very happy story, Emma. The best stories start sad but end happy, Emma declared with 6-year-old certainty. Daddy taught me that. Jack felt something shift in his chest as he watched this mysterious woman struggle with his daughter's innocent question. Despite every rational thought telling him to walk away, he heard himself saying, Emma's right. Why don't you start at the beginning? Alexandra's green eyes met his, and in them he saw a loneliness that matched his own. The beginning, she repeated softly. I'm not sure I remember where that is anymore. Outside, thunder rumbled ominously, and the rain began to fall harder against the windows. In the warm glow of the diner's lights, 3 unlikely souls found themselves at the start of something that would change all their lives forever. My name is Alexandra Reed, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. And I suppose you could say, I'm running from my own family. Jack's eyebrows rose. Reed as in Reed Technologies. Yes. Alexandra's fingers traced patterns on the table surface. My grandfather built an empire. My father expanded it, and now they expect me to marry it off to the highest bidder. Emma, who had been quietly listening while coloring on a napkin with a crayon from her small backpack, looked up with serious blue eyes. But you don't want to marry someone you don't love. Alexandra smiled sadly at the little girl's simple understanding. No, Emma, I don't. But in my family, love is considered a luxury we can't afford. Jack felt a familiar anger stir in his chest, the same anger he'd felt also when his own family had cut him off for choosing love over their expectations. So you ran. 3 days ago, I was supposed to sign papers that would essentially hand over my life to a man I barely know. James Thornton, heir to Thornton Maritime. Our families have been planning this merger for years. Alexandra's hands clenched into fists. I couldn't do it, so I took what cash I could gather and disappeared. But they found you, Jack observed. My father hired private investigators. Those men you saw, they work for him. He wants me back before tomorrow's board meeting where the merger is supposed to be announced. Emma had stopped coloring and was staring at Alexandra with the intensity only children could muster. You're like Rapunzel, she said suddenly. Rapunzel, Alexandra asked. She was trapped in a tower by someone who said they loved her, but really just wanted to keep her locked up. But she found a way to be free. Emma's young voice carried surprising wisdom. Daddy says freedom is the most important thing, even if it's scary. Jack felt his throat tighten. He'd told Emma that story after one of her nightmares about her mother trying to explain why sometimes people had to make hard choices. He hadn't realized she'd understood it so deeply. Your daughter is remarkable, Alexandra told Jack, her voice filled with wonder. She gets that from her mother. Jack replied automatically, then felt the familiar pang of loss. Melissa was the strongest person I knew. She taught me that love means letting someone choose their own path even when it terrifies you. Something in Alexandra's expression softened. What happened to her? Cancer, 3 years ago. Jack's voice was steady, but Emma reached over and squeezed his hand in a gesture of comfort that broke his heart every time. Emma was only 3. She barely remembers her mother, but she has Melissa's spirit. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, studying their joined hands. I'm sorry, losing someone you love, I can't imagine. The worst part wasn't losing her, Jack admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. It was realizing how alone we really were. Melissa's family never approved of me. I was just a waiter, not good enough for their daughter. And my family, he trailed off. Alexandra's eyes widened with recognition. They disowned you. Cut me off completely when I married Melissa instead of the banker's daughter they'd picked out. Jack shrugged, though the old wound still ached. Turned out to be the best decision I ever made, even if it meant struggling financially. But you had love. Emma piped up, her 6-year-old logic cutting straight to the heart of things. That's better than money. Alexandra stared at the little girl as if she just revealed the secrets of the universe. You really believe that? Daddy says love makes everything better even when we're sad or scared or don't have very much money for toys. Emma's matter-of-fact tone made her words even more profound. Jack watched Alexandra's face transform as Emma spoke. The fear and desperation were still there, but something else was emerging, hope maybe, or possibility. Emma, Alexandra said slowly, what do you think someone should do if they're trapped like Rapunzel but they're scared of falling? Emma considered this seriously, her brow furrowed in concentration. Well, Rapunzel was scared too, but she decided that staying trapped was worse than falling. And you know what? She didn't fall at all. She flew. Alexandra's laugh was shaky but genuine. You think I can fly? Maybe not really fly, Emma giggled. But Daddy says when you're brave enough to jump, sometimes you find out you had wings all along. Jack felt his chest swell with pride and love for his daughter. At 6 years old, she possessed a wisdom that humbled him daily. Your father is a very smart man, Alexandra told Emma. But her eyes were on Jack as she spoke. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Jack couldn't quite name. Then Alexandra's phone buzzed, shattering the intimacy. Her face went pale as she read the message. They know I'm in this area, she whispered. My father's offering a substantial reward for information about my whereabouts. Someone must have seen me come in here. Jack's protective instincts flared. What kind of reward? Enough to tempt anyone who's struggling financially. Alexandra's eyes met his meaningfully, like a single father working double shifts to support his daughter. The implication hung in the air between them. Jack could feel Alexandra testing him, waiting to see if he would choose the money over her trust. For a moment, he was tempted. The amount she was probably talking about could change his and Emma's lives forever. But then he looked at Emma, who was watching him with complete faith in her blue eyes, and he knew there was really no choice at all. How long do you think we have? He asked. Alexandra's relief was palpable. Maybe an hour before they start going door to door. I need to keep moving, but I can't go back to my hotel. They'll be watching it. And where will you go? I don't know. I'd never been on my own before. Not really. I've always had drivers, assistants, security teams handling the details of my life. Alexandra's laugh was bitter. Turns out being raised in a golden cage doesn't teach you much about surviving in the real world. Emma had been listening intently, and now she tugged on Jack's sleeve. Daddy, can I talk to you? Jack leaned down as Emma cupped her hands around her mouth to whisper in his ear. Her words were so quiet that Alexandra couldn't hear, but Jack's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Are you sure, sweetheart? He murmured back. Emma nodded solemnly. She's scared like I was when the monsters came in my dreams. You helped me feel safe. We should help her too. Jack straightened, his heart pounding. What Emma was suggesting was crazy dangerous, potentially life-changing. But as he looked at Alexandra, really looked at her, he saw past the designer clothes and perfect makeup to the frightened young woman underneath. Alexandra, he said slowly, Emma has a suggestion. Alexandra turned to the little girl with curious eyes. What is it, sweetheart? Emma's voice was small but determined. You could stay with us, just until you figure out how to fly. Alexandra's mouth fell open. Emma, that's very kind, but I couldn't impose. It's not imposing if we want to help, Jack interrupted, his decision made. We have a small apartment above Murphy's hardware store. It's not much, but it is safe, and Mr. Murphy minds his own business. You barely know me, Alexandra protested. I could be dangerous. I'm definitely trouble. So was Rapunzel, probably, Emma said matter-of-factly. But that doesn't mean she didn't deserve help. Jack felt something shift inside his chest as he watched Alexandra struggle with their offer. Look, I know this is crazy, but Emma's right. You need somewhere safe to figure out your next move. And he paused, surprised by his own words. We could use some magic in our lives. Alexandra's eyes filled with tears she was clearly trying not to shed. Why would you do this for a complete stranger? Because, Emma said, reaching across the table to pat Alexandra's hand with startling gentleness. Sometimes strangers are just friends we haven't met yet. Outside, the storm was growing stronger, rain lashing against the windows with increasing intensity. In the warm circle of light surrounding their table, three people who had been alone in their struggles found themselves contemplating a leap of faith that would bind their destinies together. But hidden in the shadows across the street, someone was watching them through the rain-streaked glass, waiting for the perfect moment to close in on their prey. The walk to Jack's apartment took 15 minutes through back alleys and side streets, with Alexandra's designer heels clicking awkwardly on wet pavement. She'd insisted on paying for their lunch and left a generous tip that made Pete's eyes widen, but Jack noticed she did it discreetly without making him feel small. Emma held Alexandra's hand as they navigated puddles, chattering about the different animals they passed, a stray cat that reminded her of the kitten she wanted, pigeons that made her think of dinosaurs, a dog walker whose golden retriever looked friendly. Alexandra listened with genuine attention, asking questions that made Emma glow with importance. That's Mr. Murphy's store, Jack said as they approached a narrow brick building squeezed between a laundromat and a used bookstore. We live upstairs. It's not fancy. It's perfect, Alexandra interrupted, gazing up at the modest building with something like wonder. I've never lived anywhere that wasn't designed by professional decorators. Jack led them up the external staircase to their second-floor apartment. The key stuck slightly in the lock, a quirk he'd been meaning to fix for months, but finally yielded. He pushed open the door and felt his usual mixture of pride and embarrassment as Alexandra stepped inside. The apartment was small but clean, with mismatched furniture that told stories of thrift store finds and hand-me-downs. Emma's artwork covered the refrigerator, and her toys were neatly organized in colorful plastic bins. Sunlight streamed through windows that Jack had scrubbed spotless, illuminating the tiny space with warmth. Oh, Alexandra breathed, moving slowly through the living room. It's beautiful. Jack blinked in surprise. Beautiful? It's a home, Alexandra explained, running her fingers along the back of their second-hand sofa. Everything has meaning, purpose. These pictures? She paused at a collage of photographs showing Emma at various ages, Jack's arms around her in each one. You can feel the love in every corner. Emma beamed at the compliment and immediately began showing Alexandra around like a tiny tour guide. This is our kitchen, where Daddy makes the best pancakes in the world. And this is my room where I keep Mr. Hopscotch and all my books. And this is Daddy's room, but you can't go in there because it's private unless there's an emergency. Like when I had a nightmare about the scary movie at Jessica's house and... Emma, breathe, Jack laughed, catching his daughter before she could continue her run-on sentence. Why don't you show Alexandra your book collection while I make some coffee? As Emma dragged Alexandra toward her room, Jack found himself alone in the kitchen, trying to process what had just happened. In the span of 2 hours, he'd gone from struggling, single father to harboring a fugitive heiress. The rational part of his mind screamed that this was insane, that he was putting Emma in danger for a woman he'd just met. But the larger part of him, the part that had fallen in love with Melissa, despite his family's objections, recognized something in Alexandra that called to his protective instincts. She wasn't just running from an arranged marriage. She was fighting for the right to choose her own life. The same battle he'd fought years ago. Mr. Hopscotch says, "You're very pretty," he heard Emma tell Alexandra from the other room. He's a good judge of character. Daddy says so. Alexandra's laughter was warm and genuine. Well, please tell Mr. Hopscotch I said thank you. That's a very nice compliment. He also says you smell like flowers, but sad flowers, like the ones on Mommy's grave. Jack froze coffee scoop halfway to the machine. Trust Emma to go straight to the heart of things. Sad flowers, Alexandra's voice was gentle. You know, pretty but lonely, like they miss the sunshine. Emma's 6-year-old logic was sometimes uncomfortably perceptive. Daddy used to smell like sad flowers too after Mommy died, but he smells better now. Happy sad, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense, Alexandra said softly. Sometimes we carry sadness with us even when we're trying to be happy. Jack finished making coffee and brought 2 mugs to the living room, finding Alexandra and Emma sitting on the floor surrounded by picture books. Alexandra had kicked off her expensive heels and was reading aloud from a story about a princess who saved herself. This princess is smart, Alexandra observed, showing Emma an illustration of the heroine outsmarting a dragon. She doesn't wait for someone else to rescue her. Daddy says the best princesses are the ones who save themselves, Emma agreed, but sometimes it's okay to accept help from friends. Alexandra's eyes met Jack's over Emma's head, and he saw gratitude and something deeper there, a connection that made his pulse quicken. Your daughter is extraordinary, Alexandra murmured, as Emma wandered off to find another book. She has her moments, Jack agreed, settling onto the couch. She's been through a lot for someone so young, but she has this amazing ability to find hope in everything. She gets that from you. Actually, I think I'm learning it from her. Jack handed Alexandra a mug, their fingers brushing in the transfer. After Melissa died, I was drowning. Emma saved me by needing me to be strong for her. Alexandra studied his face. And now I'm grateful every day for the chance to be her father, even when it's terrifying and exhausting and I have no idea what I'm doing. You're doing everything right, Alexandra said firmly. Emma feels completely safe with you, loved, protected. Do you know how rare that is? Something in her tone made Jack look at her more closely. You didn't feel safe growing up. Alexandra's laugh was hollow. Safety in my family meant following the rules, meeting expectations, never questioning the plan. Love was conditional on obedience. She paused, watching Emma arrange her books in careful stacks. I was raised by nannies and tutors, groomed for marriage to strengthen business alliances. My father taught me to speak 5 languages, play piano, manage a household staff, and charm investors at dinner parties. But no one ever asked what I wanted, what I dreamed about. What do you dream about? Jack asked quietly. Alexandra was silent for so long that he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Freedom. The chance to make my own choices even if they're mistakes. I want to fail at something I chose rather than succeed at something I was forced into. That's not too much to ask. My family thinks it is. They think I'm selfish, ungrateful. Maybe they're right. They're not right, Emma's voice piped up from across the room. She'd been listening while pretending to organize her books. Wanting to choose your own life isn't selfish, it's brave. Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. How did you get so wise, little one? Daddy reads me lots of stories. They teach you about being brave and making good choices and how love is the most important thing. Jack felt his heart swell with pride. But before he could respond, Alexandra's phone buzzed again. Her face went pale as she read the message. They're offering $50,000 now, she whispered, for information leading to my location. Jack whistled low. That kind of money would solve every financial problem he had, pay for Emma's college education, give them security he'd only dreamed of. That's a lot of money, he said carefully. Alexandra nodded, her expression resigned. Enough to change your life. I understand if you've changed your mind about helping me. Emma looked between them with serious eyes, clearly sensing the tension. Daddy, what's wrong? Jack knelt down to Emma's eye level. Some people are looking for Alexandra's sweetheart. They're offering money to anyone who tells them where she is. Emma's brow furrowed. But that would be telling on her. That's tattling. It's more complicated than that, Em. That money could help us a lot. We could get you that kitten you want, maybe even move to a bigger apartment. Emma considered this seriously, her 6-year-old mind working through the moral complexity. Finally, she looked up at Alexandra. Are you a bad person? I don't think so, Alexandra answered honestly. But some people think I am because I won't do what they want me to do. Do you want to hurt anybody? No, never. Emma nodded decisively and turned back to Jack. Then we shouldn't tell on her. Money isn't more important than helping someone who's scared. Jack felt something break open in his chest, a flood of love and pride that left him speechless. His 6-year-old daughter had just solved a moral dilemma that had been tearing him apart. "You're absolutely right, sweetheart," he managed, his voice thick with emotion. Alexandra was staring at Emma as if she'd just witnessed a miracle. "I don't deserve this kindness." "Everyone deserves kindness," Emma said matter-of-factly. "That's what Mama used to say." "Right, Daddy?" "Right," Jack agreed, his decision made. "Alexandra, you can stay as long as you need to. We'll figure this out together." Alexandra's composure finally cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you, both of you. I promise I'll find a way to repay this somehow." Emma walked over and patted Alexandra's knee with gentle sympathy. "You don't have to pay us back. That's what friends do. They help each other." As Alexandra pulled Emma into a grateful hug, Jack felt something shift in the very foundations of his world. They were no longer just three separate people thrown together by circumstance. They were becoming something more, something that felt dangerously like a family. But outside their small sanctuary, forces were mobilizing that would test their newfound bond in ways none of them could imagine. Alexandra woke to the sound of Emma's laughter drifting through the thin apartment walls. For a moment, she forgot where she was expecting to see the silk curtains and marble surfaces of her penthouse suite. Instead, she found herself on Jack's secondhand sofa, covered by a handmade quilt that smelled faintly of lavender and childhood memories. 3 days had passed since she'd first entered their lives, and the Reed family's search had intensified. Private investigators canvassed the neighborhood daily, but Jack's choice to help her had created an unexpected sanctuary. More than that, it had given her the first taste of genuine family life she'd ever experienced. "Good morning, sleepyhead." Jack's voice was warm as he emerged from the kitchen carrying a steaming mug of coffee. He'd gotten into the habit of making her coffee exactly how she liked it, black, with just a hint of sugar, without her ever having to ask twice. "Morning," Alexandra smiled, accepting the mug gratefully. "I still can't believe how easily I sleep here. I haven't slept through the night in years." "That's what safety feels like," Emma announced, appearing in the doorway wearing mismatched pajamas and dragging Mr. Hopscotch behind her. "Right, Daddy?" Jack ruffled his daughter's hair affectionately. "Right, sweetheart. How about we make Alexandra some of our famous pancakes?" As they moved into the small kitchen, Alexandra marveled at their easy rhythm. Jack and Emma worked together like a well-choreographed dance, Emma measuring ingredients while Jack heated the griddle, both of them unconsciously accommodating each other's movements in the cramped space. "Alexandra, can you help me crack the eggs?" Emma asked, patting the stool beside her. "Daddy says I'm getting better, but sometimes the shells get mixed in." "I'd love to," Alexandra replied, surprised by how much she meant it. In her world, breakfast was prepared by staff and served on china that cost more than most people's monthly salary. This chaotic, flour-dusted kitchen felt more real than anything she'd ever known. As they cooked together, Emma chattered about her upcoming first day of school, her excitement palpable. "Miss Rodriguez sent a letter saying we're going to learn about space and dinosaurs and how to read big words, and there's a reading corner with beanbags." "That sounds wonderful," Alexandra said, but she noticed Jack's expression tighten slightly. "Jack, what's wrong?" Jack hesitated, focusing intently on flipping a pancake. "Nothing's wrong, just first-day nerves, I guess." But Emma, with her uncanny ability to sense adult emotions, looked up at her father with knowing eyes. "Daddy's worried about the money for school supplies." "Emma," Jack warned gently, "it's okay, Daddy. Alexandra is our friend now. Friends help each other, remember." Emma turned to Alexandra with matter-of-fact confidence. "The list has lots of things on it. Daddy says we'll get everything eventually, but maybe not all at once." Alexandra felt something twist in her chest. She was wearing a single bracelet worth more than Jack's annual salary, while this good man worried about buying his daughter crayons and notebooks. "What if I helped it with the school supplies?" Alexandra offered carefully. "As a thank you for letting me stay here." Jack's jaw tightened. "That's not necessary. We manage fine." "I know you do, but I want to help. Please." Emma looked between them with the serious expression she wore when navigating adult emotions. "Daddy, when someone wants to give you a present, it's polite to say thank you. Remember when Mrs. Patterson from downstairs brought us soup when I was sick?" Jack's resistance crumbled under his daughter's logic. "That's different, Em." "How is it different?" Emma asked with genuine curiosity. Jack struggled for an answer that wouldn't hurt Alexandra's feelings while maintaining his pride. Alexandra watched him wrestle with accepting help, recognizing the same stubborn independence that had driven her to run from her family's control. Jack, she said softly, I need you to understand something. For the past 3 days, you and Emma have given me something I've never had, a real home. Let me give something back. Not because you need it, but because I want to. Emma clapped her hands together. See, Alexandra wants to give us a present because we're friends. Jack looked at Alexandra for a long moment, and she saw the exact moment his defenses softened. Okay, but nothing extravagant. Just the basic supplies. Deal, Alexandra agreed, though she was already planning to do much more than the basics. They finished breakfast in comfortable companionship, but their peace was shattered when Alexandra's phone rang. The caller ID made her blood freeze. Father, she whispered, moving toward the bedroom for privacy. I have to take this. Alexandra Elena Reed. Her father's voice was ice cold through the speaker. Do you have any idea what your little rebellion has cost our family? Hello, Father. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Don't be flippant. The Thornton deal is falling apart. James is threatening to walk away if you don't return immediately. 20 years of negotiations ruined because you decided to play at being independent. Alexandra closed her eyes, feeling the familiar weight of family expectations settling over her shoulders. I'm not playing at anything. I'm trying to live my own life. Your life. Maxwell Reed's laugh was harsh. Everything you are, everything you have exists because of this family. You've been educated, groomed, and positioned for this exact moment. And you're throwing it away for what, a childish fantasy about love? Maybe I am. But it's my choice to make. Choices have consequences, Alexandra. If you're not back by tomorrow evening, I'll cut off your trust fund, revoke your company positions, and ensure you never work in any industry where Reed Technologies has influence, which, as you know, is considerable. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Alexandra had always known this moment would come, but hearing it spoken aloud still felt like a physical blow. You would destroy your own daughter's life to force a business deal. I would save my daughter from making the biggest mistake of her life. You think you understand the world, but you've never lived in it without our protection. You'll be back within a week begging for forgiveness. The line went dead, leaving Alexandra staring at her phone with shaking hands. Through the thin walls, she could hear Jack and Emma cleaning up breakfast, their easy laughter a sharp contrast to the cold reality her father had just delivered. When she emerged from the bedroom, Jack took one look at her face and immediately moved closer. What happened? My father knows I'm still in the city. He's escalating things. Alexandra sank onto the sofa, feeling suddenly exhausted. He's threatening to cut me off completely if I don't return by tomorrow night. Emma, who had been arranging her books in neat piles, looked up with concern. What does that mean, cut you off? It means he'll take away all my money, my job, everything that connects me to my family, Alexandra explained gently. Emma's brow furrowed as she processed this. But you're still his daughter. Daddies don't stop loving their children just because they're mad. Alexandra's smile was heartbreakingly sad. Some daddies do, sweetheart. Some families only love you when you do exactly what they want. That's not real love, Emma declared with 6-year-old certainty. Real love means loving someone even when they make different choices. Jack felt his heart clench at his daughter's wisdom. Em's right. What your father is threatening isn't love. It's control. Maybe, but it's also reality. Alexandra rubbed her temples, feeling a familiar headache building. Without my family's money and connections, I have nothing. No job skills, no real-world experience. I've been preparing my whole life to run businesses I'll never own, marry into families that see me as a commodity. You have intelligence, education, determination, Jack pointed out. Those things have value beyond your family name. Do they? I can speak 5 languages, but I've never held a real job. I have 2 master's degrees in business, but I've never actually earned a paycheck. I can manage a staff of 20, but I can't even do my own laundry. Alexandra's laugh was bitter. Your 6-year-old daughter is more capable of independent living than I am. Emma, who had been listening intently, suddenly stood up and walked over to Alexandra. Without a word, she climbed onto the sofa and settled into Alexandra's lap, offering the comfort of her small presence. You know how to be kind, Emma said seriously, and you know how to be brave even when you're scared. Those are the most important things. Alexandra wrapped her arms around Emma, drawing strength from the child's unwavering faith. How did you get so wise? Stories, Emma replied matter-of-factly. And Daddy, he teaches me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you are scared. Jack watched his daughter comfort this woman, who had stumbled into their lives and felt something profound shift in his understanding of their situation. This wasn't just about helping a stranger anymore. Somehow, Alexandra had become essential to their small family unit. Alexandra, he said carefully, what if you didn't go back? I told you without my family's support. No, I mean, what if you built something new here with us? Alexandra stared at him, not daring to hope. Jack, that's impossible. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Jack moved closer, his voice growing stronger. Emma's right. You are brave and kind. Those qualities matter more than trust funds or business connections. But I don't know how to live like this. I've never paid bills or grocery shopped or... So you'll learn, and Emma interrupted confidently. Daddy taught me how to tie my shoes and ride a bike and make scrambled eggs. He can teach you too. Alexandra looked between them, seeing acceptance and possibility where she'd expected judgment and limitations. You really think I could learn to be normal? Define normal, Jack said with a slight smile. We're a single father and his 6-year-old daughter living above a hardware store. If you can fit into that kind of abnormal, you are welcome to stay as long as you want. For the first time since her father's call, Alexandra felt hope stirring in her chest. It would be starting over completely. I'd have to find work, learn to budget, figure out how to live without a safety net. Starting over isn't always a bad thing, Jack observed. Sometimes it's the only way to become who you're really meant to be. Emma nodded sagely. Like when you clean your room really, really well and put everything in new places. It's scary at first, but then it feels better. Alexandra laughed despite her tears. Is that your professional opinion, Dr. Emma? Yep, and Mr. Hopscotch agrees. Emma held up her stuffed rabbit. He says you should stay with us, and we'll be a new kind of family. The word family hung in the air, loaded with possibility and promise. Alexandra looked at Jack, seeing her own longing reflected in his eyes. A new kind of family, she repeated softly. But even as hope bloomed in her chest, Alexandra couldn't shake the feeling that her father wouldn't simply accept her defiance. Maxwell Reed was not a man who tolerated losing, especially to what he would see as a common waiter and his impressionable daughter. Outside, storm clouds were gathering again, and Alexandra couldn't help but feel they were a warning of the tempest about to descend on their fragile new happiness. A sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Jack and Alexandra froze, looking at each other with sudden alarm. Expecting anyone, Alexandra whispered. Jack shook his head, moving quietly toward the door. He peered through the peephole and his face went pale. 2 men in suits, he whispered back. They look official. Alexandra's heart pounded. My father's investigators. They found me. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Miss Reed, we know you're in there. We just want to talk. Jack looked at Alexandra, seeing fear and determination warring in her expression. What do you want to do? Alexandra straightened her shoulders and Jack saw a glimpse of the steel that had allowed her to defy one of the most powerful families in the city. I'm done running, she said firmly. It's time to face this head on. But as Jack reached for the doorknob, neither of them could have anticipated what they were about to learn or how Emma's innocent wisdom was about to save them all in the most unexpected way. The truth about Alexandra's family ran deeper than arranged marriages and business mergers, and the secret Emma had been unconsciously guarding was about to change everything they thought they knew about destiny connection and the true meaning of home. Jack opened the door with steady hands, shielding Alexandra and Emma behind him. 2 men stood in the hallway, their suits as perfectly tailored as their expressions were somber. The taller one, silver-haired with unexpectedly kind eyes, stepped forward. Mr. Harris, I'm David Martinez. This is my associate, James Chen. We're attorneys with Martinez, Chen and Associates. Jack's stance remained protective. What do you want? We need to speak with Ms. Alexandra Reed. Martinez's eyes moved past Jack, finding Alexandra in the living room. It's regarding a matter of some urgency. Alexandra stepped forward, her chin raised despite the tremor in her hands. I assume my father sent you with legal documents forcing me to return. A look of surprise crossed Martinez's face. Actually, Ms. Reed, we're not here on behalf of your father. Then who? Your grandmother, Eleanor Reed. The name hit Alexandra like a physical blow. She gripped the door frame to steady herself. My grandmother died 5 years ago. Martinez exchanged a meaningful look with his partner. That's what your father told you. May we come in? What we have to discuss is rather complex. Jack looked to Alexandra, who nodded shakily. As they settled in the small living room, Alexandra's mind reeled. Her grandmother had been the only person in her family who had ever truly understood her, who had encouraged her to think for herself. Martinez placed his leather briefcase carefully on the coffee table. Ms. Reed, your grandmother didn't die 5 years ago. She's been living quietly in Portland under an assumed name, waiting for the right moment to contact you. That's impossible. I attended her funeral. You saw an elaborate deception orchestrated by your father. Eleanor Reed discovered some disturbing information about the family business and threatened to expose it. Your father had her declared legally dead and attempted to institutionalize her under a false identity. Alexander felt the world tilt beneath her. What information? Chen opened his briefcase and withdrew a thick folder. Reed Technologies has been involved in several illegal activities over the past decade. Money laundering, fraud, tax evasion. Your grandmother uncovered evidence and threatened to turn it over to federal authorities unless your father changed course. So he had her eliminated, Alexandra whispered. Not eliminated, silenced. But Eleanor Reed is far more resourceful than your father gave her credit for. She's been building a case against him for 5 years, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Jack, who had been listening in stunned silence, leaned forward. What does this have to do with Alexandra? Martinez smiled. Everything. You see, Eleanor Reed was never declared legally dead in all jurisdictions. She retained control of several family trusts that your father doesn't know about, trusts that bypass him entirely, and named Alexandra as the sole beneficiary. Alexandra's hands trembled. I don't understand. Your grandmother has been waiting for you to show the strength and independence she always knew you possessed. Your decision to run from the arranged marriage to choose your own path, it was the signal she'd been waiting for. Emma, who had been quietly observing from the corner of the room with Mr. Hopscotch clutched to her chest, suddenly spoke up. Is Alexandra's grandma coming to visit us? Martinez's expression softened as he looked at the little girl. Not just yet, Emma, but she very much wants to meet you all when the time is right. Jack felt a chill. How do you know my daughter's name? Your grandmother has been having you watched protectively, not threateningly, Martinez explained to Alexandra. She wanted to ensure you were safe while she finalized everything. She's been particularly impressed by the Harris family's kindness toward you. Emma beamed at this information, but Jack's protective instincts flared. So we've been under surveillance for how long? Only since Alexandra arrived, Chen assured him. Eleanor Reed's resources are substantial but not unlimited. Her primary focus has been gathering evidence against her son's illegal activities. Alexandra struggled to process this revelation. If my grandmother is alive, if she has evidence against my father, why hasn't she gone to the authorities? It's complicated. Martinez sighed. Your father has powerful connections in law enforcement and government. Going directly to authorities without ironclad evidence and significant financial resources to fight a protracted legal battle would be dangerous. Eleanor needed to secure her position first and yours. Jack studied the lawyers carefully. His years of reading people at the diner had sharpened his ability to detect deception. These men weren't lying, but they weren't telling the entire truth either. What exactly does Alexandra's grandmother want from her? Martinez closed his briefcase with a deliberate click. To meet with her, to discuss the future of Reed Technologies and her role in it. Alexandra felt hope and suspicion warring within her. This could be an elaborate trap set by my father. A reasonable concern, Martinez nodded. Your grandmother anticipated your skepticism. He handed Alexandra a small envelope. She asked us to give you this. She said you'd understand. Alexandra opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a pressed violet, small, fragile, and unmistakably familiar. Her breath caught. When she was 8, she'd made a secret garden with her grandmother behind the pool house at their summer estate. Violets had been their special flower, something her father knew nothing about. This is real. she whispered, tears filling her eyes. She's really alive. Emma crossed the room to Alexandra's side, touching the dried flower with careful fingers. It's pretty, like something from a fairy tale. A fairy tale with corporate espionage and family betrayal, Jack muttered under his breath. To the lawyers, his voice grew firm. What happens now, Maxwell Reed knows Alexandra is here. He's offering a $50,000 reward for information on her whereabouts. Your father has escalated his search, Martinez confirmed, which means we need to accelerate our timeline. Ms. Reed, your grandmother, would like to meet with you tomorrow evening. Tomorrow, Alexandra's head spun with the rapid developments. But my father expects me at the board meeting tomorrow to announce the Thornton merger. Precisely why we must act now. Eleanor has secured a 25% ownership stake in Reed Technologies through shell companies and legal maneuvering. Combined with your inherited 15%, you could challenge your father's control of the company. Jack's eyes widened at the percentages being discussed so casually. The financial world these people inhabited was so far removed from his daily struggle to make rent. Alexandra turned the dried violet over in her hand. I need time to think. This is overwhelming. Of course, Martinez stood, passing her a business card. Call this number when you're friendly, day or night. After the lawyers left the apartment, fell into heavy silence. Emma, sensing the adults needed to talk, retreated to her room with Mr. Hopscotch after giving Alexandra a supportive hug. Jack paced the small living room, his thoughts racing. This changes everything, doesn't it? Your grandmother, the company, shares the accusations against your father. Alexandra sat motionless, the violet still in her palm. If what they're saying is true, my entire life has been built on lies. My father tried to have his own mother institutionalized to protect his illegal activities. He told me she was dead. Do you believe them about your grandmother being alive? Alexandra closed her fingers gently around the violet. This flower, it's from our secret garden. No one knew about it except grandmother and me, not even the gardeners. She looked up at Jack, her eyes haunted. But that doesn't mean I can trust her motives now. 5 years is a long time. People change. Jack sat beside her, his weight creating a dip in the sofa cushion that gently shifted Alexandra toward him. What does your instinct tell you? That my grandmother would never hurt me. That she was the only person who ever saw me as more than a corporate asset. But Jack, if I do this, if I side with her against my father, there's no going back. Ever. Their conversation was interrupted by Emma's excited voice calling from her bedroom. Daddy, Alexandra, come see what I made. They found Emma sitting cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by crayons and construction paper. She held up a colorful drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall man, a little girl, and a woman with yellow hair standing in front of a house with a rainbow overhead. It's us, Emma explained proudly, our family, for my first day of school tomorrow. Miss Rodriguez says we're supposed to bring pictures of our families to share. Jack felt his heart constrict. 3 days, and already Emma had incorporated Alexandra into her definition of family. The hope and vulnerability in his daughter's eyes was terrifying. Alexandra knelt beside the bed, her throat tight with emotion. Emma, this is beautiful. But you know I might not be able to stay forever, right? Things are complicated with my family. Emma's small face grew serious. Is your daddy still being mean to you? It's not that simple, sweetheart. It is simple, Emma insisted with the clarity only children possess. If someone tries to make you do things that make you sad, they're not being a good family. Real family helps you be happy even when it's hard. Jack watched Alexandra's expression shift as Emma's words penetrated her defenses. In 3 days, his daughter had given Alexandra what a lifetime of wealth and privilege couldn't unconditional acceptance. I should start dinner, Jack said quietly, giving them space. In the kitchen, he leaned against the counter, overwhelmed by the day's revelations. He had fallen in love with a woman he barely knew, a woman whose family drama made his own parental estrangement seem trivial by comparison. The next morning arrived with crisp autumn sunlight and the nervous energy of Emma's first day of school. Alexandra had spent a restless night on the sofa, her dreams filled with fractured memories of her grandmother and dark warnings about her father. She woke early, determined to be useful. By the time Jack emerged from his bedroom, she had coffee brewing and was attempting to make toast without burning it, a skill she'd yet to master. Morning. Jack smiled, taking over the slightly smoking toaster. Sleep okay? Not really too much to think about. Alexandra picked up a notepad where she'd been making a list. I made some calls this morning. To my personal banker, to my lawyer. I've decided to meet with my grandmother tonight. Jack flipped the toast onto a plate, scraping off the blackened edges. You're sure? No, but I need answers, and she's the only one who can provide them. Alexandra set her notepad down with deliberate calm. I've also transferred some funds from my personal account to a new one that my father can't access. It's not much by Reed standards, about $50,000, but it's something. $50,000 is not much. Jack's eyebrows shot up. That's more than I make in 2 years. Alexandra winced. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. No, I know. Jack waved off her apology. Different worlds. I'm just glad you're securing your own resources. Your father's threat to cut you off financially won't have the same power now. Emma bounded into the kitchen electric with first-day excitement. Is my backpack ready? Did you pack my lunch? Can Alexandra walk with us to school? Jack smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. Yes, yes, and that's up to Alexandra. It might not be safe for her to be seen in public right now. I'd love to come, Alexandra said immediately, surprising herself with how much she meant it. The prospect of witnessing this milestone in Emma's life filled her with unexpected joy. I'll wear a hat and sunglasses. No one will recognize me. They walked to school together, Emma between them, chattering about everything she hoped to learn. Jack found himself hyper-aware of their surroundings, scanning each passing car and pedestrian for potential threats. But the morning remained peaceful, the neighborhood quiet except for other families making the same school journey. At the school gates, Emma's nervousness finally surfaced. She clutched Mr. Hopscotch tighter, her earlier confidence faltering. What if the other kids don't like me? Alexandra knelt down, adjusting Emma's red headband. Remember what you told me about being brave? It's okay to be scared, but you still go forward. Like Rapunzel. Exactly like Rapunzel. And just think of all the wonderful new friends waiting to meet you. Emma nodded solemnly, then wrapped her arms around Alexandra's neck in a fierce hug. Will you be here when school ends? Alexandra felt Jack tense beside her. The question carried weight beyond a simple after-school pickup. It asked for permanence, for commitment. I'll be here, Alexandra promised softly, one way or another. As they watched Emma walk into the building, Alexandra felt a strange ache in her chest, pride mixed with longing for something she'd never experienced before. Jack broke the silence. You're good with her. Natural. I've never been around children much. It's just, Emma makes it easy. She sees the world with such clarity. Kids do that. They haven't learned to complicate things yet. Jack's hand brushed against hers as they turned to leave the contact, brief but electric. So what's your plan for today, besides meeting your back-from-the-dead grandmother? Alexander smiled at his attempt to lighten the situation. I need to find a job, anything to start building a life independent of Reed Technologies. With your qualifications, that should be easy. You'd think so, but without references or practical experience, it's harder than you might expect. I've been sending out applications since yesterday, entry-level positions, administrative work, anything I'm remotely qualified for. They spent the morning at a small coffee shop several blocks from Jack's apartment, Alexandra using the free Wi-Fi to submit more job applications while Jack made calls to pick up extra shifts at the diner. Neither mentioned the underlying tension that Alexandra's situation remained unresolved, their future together uncertain. Alexandra's phone pinged with an email notification. Her face fell as she read it. Another rejection. That's the third this morning. Jack leaned over to read the message. That's odd. They're saying the position has been filled, but you only applied yesterday and it was posted the day before. Alexandra's jaw tightened. It's my father. He's blacklisting me. Can he do that? Maxwell Reed sits on a dozen corporate boards and has business relationships with every major company in this city. One phone call suggesting I'm under investigation for corporate espionage would be enough to make me unhireable. Jack's phone rang, the diner's number flashing on the screen. He answered with growing concern, his expression darkening. I understand. No. You made the right call. I'll be right in. He ended the call, his face grim. That was Pete. 2 men came into the diner asking questions about me, about whether I'd had any unusual customers recently. They flashed badges but wouldn't identify which agency they were with. Alexandra's blood ran cold. We need to go. Now. They left the coffee shop through the back exit, taking a circuitous route back to the apartment. As they rounded the corner to Murphy's Hardware, Jack pulled Alexandra into the shadow of a doorway. Across the street, a black sedan was parked directly in front of the building, two men in dark suits standing beside it. "Your father's men," Alexandra whispered. "We can't go back to the apartment." Jack checked his watch. "Emma gets out of school in 4 hours. We need somewhere safe to wait, then we'll get her and figure out our next move." They retreated down the block, ducking into Murphy's Hardware through the side entrance. Mike Murphy, a barrel-chested man in his 60s with calloused hands and watchful eyes, looked up from the register. "Jack, what's wrong, son? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Mike, this is Alexandra. We need a place to lay low for a few hours. There are men watching my apartment." Mike's bushy eyebrows rose as he studied Alexandra. "This about those fancy suits who've been asking questions around the neighborhood? Offering money for information?" Alexandra stepped forward. "My name is Alexandra Reed. Those men work for my father. He's trying to force me into an arranged marriage for business purposes. Jack and Emma have been helping me." Mike let out a low whistle. "Reed as in Reed Technologies. Darling, your daddy's picture was in the business section of the Post last week. Something about a big merger. That's why he's desperate to find me. The merger can't proceed without my signature, and the board meets tomorrow." Mike nodded once decision made. "Back room's yours for as long as you need it. There's a continent and a mini fridge. Not fancy, but it's private. Jack, you want me to call Frank over at the diner? Let him know what's happening. Please, and if anyone asks, never seen either of you." Mike winked. "Been running this store 40 years. Know when to mind my business." The back room was small but clean, lined with inventory shelves and a small desk piled with invoices. The promised cot sat in one corner, a small refrigerator humming beside it. Jack collapsed onto a wooden chair, the events of the past few days finally catching up to him. "I've dragged you and Emma into danger. I should have just called the police when you first showed up." Alexandra sat beside him on the cot. "The police wouldn't have helped. My father would have convinced them I was having a mental breakdown, that he was only trying to help his troubled daughter. This is insane. Board takeovers, corporate espionage, lawyers with cryptic messages. This isn't my world, Alexandra." "It isn't mine either, not really. I've spent my life as a pawn in it, but I've never controlled any of it." Alexandra reached for his hand. "Jack, I'm sorry for bringing this chaos into your life. If you want me to leave to keep Emma safe." "That's not what I want." Jack's fingers tightened around hers. "I'm scared for Emma, yes, but I'm also scared for you. Your father sounds dangerous, Alexandra. If he was willing to institutionalize his own mother—" "I know." Alexandra's voice was small. "That's why I have to meet with my grandmother tonight. If she really has evidence against him, maybe we can end this." The hours passed in tense conversation and longer silences. Alexandra made more calls confirming her meeting with her grandmother's lawyers. Jack arranged for Emma to go home with her friend Sophie after school, buying them a few more hours to sort out their next steps. At 3 o'clock, Mike knocked on the back room door. "Jack, there's someone here to see you." Jack tensed, moving protectively in front of Alexandra. "Who is it?" "Says she's Emma's teacher, Miss Rodriguez. She seems pretty upset." Jack opened the door to find Emma's first-grade teacher, her normally composed face tight with concern. "Mr. Harris, I'm sorry to bother you at work, but I needed to speak with you immediately." "What's wrong? Is Emma okay?" "She's fine. She's still in class. But during our family drawing sharing time, Emma showed her picture and told the class about her new mom, Alexandra, who's hiding from bad men because her daddy wants to make her marry someone she doesn't love." Jack's stomach dropped. "Kids and their imaginations, right?" Miss Rodriguez wasn't smiling. "Mr. Harris, normally I would agree. But a man came to the school office an hour ago claiming to be Emma's grandfather. He was asking questions about her home situation, whether there were any new adults in her life. He showed ID, identifying himself as Maxwell Reed." Alexandra gasped, stepping into view. "My father went to Emma's school." Miss Rodriguez's eyes widened as she looked between them. "You must be Alexandra. Emma's drawing was quite accurate." Her expression softened. "Mr. Harris, I don't know what's happening, but I refuse to give this man any information about Emma." Something felt wrong. He became quite insistent, almost threatening. The principal asked him to leave, but he said he'd be back with proper documentation. Jack felt cold fury building inside him. He threatened a school principal to get information about my daughter. Not explicitly, but the implication was clear. Mr. Harris, if you're in some kind of trouble, it's complicated, Jack admitted. But Emma isn't in any danger from us. It's Alexandra's father who's the threat. Miss Rodriguez nodded slowly. I suspected as much from Emma's story. That's why I came to warn you. The man said he'd return at dismissal time. Alexandra's hands were shaking. He's using Emma to get to me. Thank you for the warning, Jack told Miss Rodriguez. I'll pick Emma up early, right now. After the teacher left, Jack turned to Alexandra, his expression harder than she'd ever seen it. This crosses a line. Threatening my livelihood is one thing. Going after my daughter is another. Alexandra's face was ashen. Jack, I am so sorry. I never thought he'd... This isn't your fault. Jack pulled out his phone. I'm calling Martinez. Your grandmother wanted to meet tonight. Let's make it now, today. I want this over. The call was brief, Martinez agreeing immediately to the accelerated timeline. Eleanor has been monitoring the situation. She's already en route to meet you. There's a private room reserved at the Westlake Hotel under the name Thompson. Go there directly. We'll bring Emma to you. Jack hesitated. I don't know you people. I'm not letting strangers pick up my daughter. I understand your concern. Ms. Rodriguez has already agreed to bring Emma to the hotel herself. Eleanor arranged it after learning of Maxwell's visit to the school. Jack ended the call unsettled by how events were unfolding without his control. Your grandmother seems to have thought of everything. She always did, Alexandra said quietly. Even when I was little, she was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. It used to make my father furious. Mike drove them to the Westlake Hotel in his delivery van, taking back roads to avoid potential surveillance. The hotel stood in stark contrast to Jack's usual surroundings, gleaming glass and polished marble uniformed staff, and an atmosphere of quiet wealth. The private room was on the top floor, a corner suite with panoramic views of the city. Jack felt immediately out of place among the elegant furnishings, his worn jeans and diner uniform, marking him as an outsider in this world of privilege. Don't, Alexandra said softly, reading his discomfort. You belong wherever you choose to be. That's something I'm learning from you. A gentle knock at the door announced Miss Rodriguez with Emma, who burst into the room and flew straight into Jack's arms. Daddy? Miss Rodriguez said there was an emergency and we had to leave school early. Is everything okay? Is Alexandra okay? Jack hugged his daughter tightly. Everything's fine, sweetheart. We just need to have a special meeting with someone important. Emma spotted Alexandra and wiggled free to hug her as well. I showed everyone my family picture and told them about you. Sophie says you're pretty like a movie star. Alexandra knelt to Emma's level, her expression serious. Emma, did a man come to your school today? Someone who said he was your grandfather. Emma nodded solemnly. He wasn't very nice. He didn't smile and he talked to Principal Winters like she was in trouble. I told Miss Rodriguez he wasn't really my grandpa because I don't have any grandpas. Jack exchanged a worried look with Alexandra. How much had Emma overheard? How much danger had she been in? Miss Rodriguez cleared her throat. I should go. Mr. Harris, I've spoken with the principal. Emma is excused for the rest of the week if needed. After she left, Jack turned to Alexandra. Now what? Now we wait for my grandmother. They didn't wait long. Within 20 minutes, there was another knock at the door. Martinez entered first, followed by his partner Chen, and then a slender woman with silver hair swept into an elegant chignon. Despite her age somewhere in her 70s, Eleanor Reed moved with the straight-back confidence of someone half her years. Her eyes, the same striking green as Alexandra's, surveyed the room with sharp intelligence. Alexandra stared at her grandmother, emotions whirring across her face, joy, disbelief, hurt, relief. Grandmother, is it really you? Eleanor Reed's composure cracked. Alexandra. Her voice held decades of love and regret. My dear girl, look at you. They moved toward each other slowly. Then all at once were embracing, years of separation, dissolving in tears and whispered words too private for others to hear. Emma tugged at Jack's hand. Is that Alexandra's grandma? The one who was playing hide and seek for a very long time? Jack nodded momentarily, too choked with emotion to speak. There was something profoundly moving about witnessing this reunion, about seeing Alexandra find a piece of her family that truly loved her. When they finally separated, Eleanor turned her attention to Jack and Emma. "And you must be the family who has been caring for my granddaughter. I cannot thank you enough." Emma stepped forward, offering her hand with solemn formality. "I'm Emma Harris, this is my daddy Jack, and this is Mr. Hopscotch. He's very good at keeping secrets." Eleanor shook the stuffed rabbit's paw with equal gravity. "I'm honored to meet you all. You've shown Alexandra more genuine kindness in a few days than she's received from her blood relatives in years, myself excluded, of course." "Ms. Reed," Jack began, unsure of the proper form of address for this aristocratic woman. "Eleanor, please." "Eleanor, your son came to my daughter's school today. He threatened school officials. He's watching my apartment. I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here." Eleanor's expression hardened. "My son has always been ruthless in business. It seems he's now applying those same tactics to his personal life. Alexandra's refusal to participate in the Thornton merger has pushed him to desperate measures. But using a child to get to her, his own daughter, Maxwell has never seen Alexandra as his daughter first. She's always been a corporate asset to him, a means to an end." Eleanor's voice was tinged with old grief. "I failed her by not recognizing this sooner." Alexandra moved to her grandmother's side. "You didn't fail me. You were the only one who ever encouraged me to be myself. And look what it cost us. 5 years of separation." Eleanor straightened steel, returning to her spine. "But that ends today. Martinez, please bring in the documents." The lawyer produced a leather portfolio filled with legal papers. "We've prepared everything. Articles of impeachment for the board, evidence of financial irregularities, documentation of Maxwell's attempts to have Eleanor declared incompetent." Jack watched as Alexandra reviewed the documents, her business education evident in her rapid understanding of the complex legal language. "This is serious, grandmother. Fraud, tax evasion, bribing government officials. If this goes public, Reed Technologies could collapse." "It won't come to that," Eleanor assured her. "The board will remove Maxwell quietly to avoid scandal. The company will continue under new leadership." "Your leadership," Alexandra guessed. "No, yours." Eleanor covered Alexandra's hand with her own. "This was always the plan from the time you were a little girl helping me in the garden. You have the education, the intelligence, and now the moral courage to lead Reed Technologies in a new direction." Alexandra looked stunned. "Me? But I've never even held a real job. I've spent the last 3 days learning how to make toast without burning it." Jack couldn't help but smile at the incongruity. This polished, educated woman, who could apparently read complex legal documents with ease, but struggled with basic kitchen appliances. "You'll have help," Eleanor assured her. "I'll be there as an advisor. But Reed Technologies needs new blood, new vision, your vision." Emma, who had been quietly coloring at a side table, suddenly looked up. "Does this mean Alexandra has to go away?" The innocent question hung in the air, voicing the fear that had been growing in Jack's heart. If Alexandra reclaimed her position in the Reed empire, where did that leave them? The connection they'd formed over these intense days had been forged in crisis and shared vulnerability. Would it survive her return to power and privilege? Alexandra knelt beside Emma's chair. "I don't know exactly what's going to happen next, Emma. But I promise you this, whatever happens, you and your dad will be part of my life. I'm not going to disappear." Emma studied Alexandra's face with the unnerving perception of childhood. "Pinky promise, pinky promise." Alexandra linked her little finger with Emma's, the solemn vow witnessed by the unlikely assembly. Eleanor watched this exchange with thoughtful eyes. "The board meeting is tomorrow morning. We need to be prepared for Maxwell's reaction when he realizes what's happening. He won't surrender control easily." "What about tonight?" Jack asked. "The men watching my apartment." "Already handled," Martinez interjected. "We've arranged secure accommodations for all of you here at the hotel. Ms. Reed has also arranged for temporary security personnel until the situation with Maxwell is resolved." Jack felt a flash of irritation. "Do we get any say in these arrangements?" Alexandra caught his eye. "Jack, I know this feels overwhelming, but my grandmother is trying to protect all of us." "I understand that, but 24 hours ago, we didn't even know she was alive. Now we are accepting her security, staying in her hotel, preparing to help her overthrow a corporate empire. It's a lot to process." Eleanor studied Jack with new respect. "You're right to be cautious, Mr. Harris. You have a daughter to protect. But I assure you my only goal is to keep Alexandra safe and to right the wrongs my son has committed both to his family and to his company. Emma, sensing the tension, slipped her hand into Jack's. Daddy, are we having a sleepover at the hotel? Can we order room service? Alexandra said. Rich people get to order food brought right to their rooms whenever they want. The innocent question broke the tension. Jack smiled down at his daughter. I guess we are having a hotel sleepover, Em. And yes, you can order room service, Alexandra added with a wink. Anything you want. As the evening progressed, the suite became the center of an impromptu war council. Martinez and Chen worked with Alexandra and Eleanor preparing strategy for the board meeting. Jack kept Emma occupied with room service adventures and the novelty of a hotel pool. When Emma finally fell asleep exhausted from the day's excitement and emotional upheaval, Jack found Alexandra alone on the suite's balcony staring out at the city lights. Emma wants you to know that room service makes the best chocolate cake in the universe, and she saved you a piece. Alexandra smiled, though her eyes remained troubled. She's an amazing child. You've done an incredible job with her, Jack. She makes it easy. Jack joined her at the railing. How are you holding up? It's been quite a day. I keep thinking I'll wake up and find this was all a dream. My grandmother alive, my father's crimes exposed me, potentially taking over a multi-billion-dollar company. Alexandra's laugh held an edge of hysteria. 24 hours ago, I was learning how to do laundry in your tiny apartment. Now I'm preparing to face down a boardroom full of the most powerful executives in the country. You can do it. I've seen how quick you are, how smart, and you have your grandmother beside you. That's not what scares me. Alexandra turned to face him, fully moonlight silvering her hair. What scares me is losing what I've found with you and Emma. This connection, this sense of belonging. I've never had that before, Jack. Not ever. Jack stepped closer, drawn by the raw honesty in her voice. Who says you have to lose it? Be realistic. If this works, if I become CEO of Reed Technologies, my life will change completely. Board meetings, international travel, media scrutiny. How would you and Emma fit into that world? The same way you fit into ours, imperfectly, awkwardly, at first, but with heart, with truth. Jack reached for her hand. Emma told me something interesting tonight. She said you promised to teach her how to be a princess who saves herself. That's when I realized you're learning from us, but we're learning from you too. What could I possibly be teaching you? Courage. The kind it takes to walk away from everything you have ever known because you believe in something better. The kind it takes to jump without knowing if you'll fly or fall. Alexandra's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I'm not brave, Jack. I'm terrified. Of tomorrow, of my father, of failing the people counting on me, of losing you. Being afraid doesn't mean you're not brave. It just means the thing you're doing matters. Jack drew her closer. And you're not going to lose me. Or Emma. Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll figure it out together. Their kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with the urgency of people who had found each other against impossible odds. When they finally separated, Alexandra rested her forehead against his. I don't know how to balance these worlds, yours and mine. I don't know if it's even possible. Maybe we don't balance them. Maybe we build something new instead. Something that's ours. Inside the suite, phones rang as Martinez received updates on Maxwell Reed's movements. Eleanor coordinated with board members who might support their cause. Chen prepared documentation for regulatory agencies if the corporate coup failed. But on the balcony, suspended between earth and sky, Jack and Alexandra held each other, creating a moment of stillness in the eye of the storm. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, revelation, perhaps even danger. But tonight they had found something precious, a connection that transcended the barriers of class and circumstance, a beginning written in the language of possibility. Emma stirred in her sleep, reaching unconsciously for Mr. Hopscotch. In her dreams, she flew above the city on violet wings, her family beside her, no longer afraid of falling. Morning light slanted through the hotel suite's windows as Alexandra stood before the mirror, adjusting the tailored blazer that Eleanor's assistant had delivered at dawn. The reflection showed a woman transformed not just by the designer suit that had replaced Jack's borrowed sweater, but by the determination in her eyes. Alexandra's hands moved to her hair, twisting it into a sleek knot at the nape of her neck. Professional, controlled. the corporate armor she'd worn her entire life, now repurposed for his battle. You don't need that, you know. Jack leaned against the doorframe watching her. They'll respect you regardless of how you wear your hair. Alexandra's fingers hesitated, then released the strands, letting them fall around her shoulders. Old habits. My father always insisted proper read women never showed vulnerability in the boardroom. And what do proper read women do instead? They show strength, intelligence, ruthless focus on the bottom line. A smile curved her lips. But I'm beginning to think there might be a different kind of strength, the kind that comes from being true to yourself. Emma appeared behind Jack. Mr. Hopscotch clutched against her pajamas. You look like a superhero, she announced, eyes wide with admiration. Are you going to fight the bad guys today? Alexandra knelt to Emma's level, mindful of her expensive suit against the carpet. Something like that. But the most important battles don't use fists or weapons. They use truth. Like when I told Jessica that calling Billy stupid was wrong, even though all the other kids were doing it. Exactly like that. Sometimes standing up for what's right is the bravest thing you can do, even when you're scared. Jack watched this exchange with a mixture of pride and apprehension. In less than 4 days, Alexandra had become essential to their world. Her absence would leave a wound far deeper than her brief presence should allow. Yet, after today, whatever the outcome, nothing would be the same. Eleanor entered the suite already immaculate in a dove-gray suit that radiated authority without ostentation. The cars are waiting downstairs. Martinez has confirmed that the board members have been notified of the emergency session. Maxwell arrived at headquarters 30 minutes ago. Alexandra straightened, squaring her shoulders. Does he know about the evidence? Not yet. As far as he's aware, this is merely a meeting to address your absence and its impact on the Thornton merger. The element of surprise remains our strongest advantage. Jack felt the weight of decision pressing down. I should be there with you. Eleanor's expression softened. Mr. Harris, Jack, I understand your desire to support Alexandra, but a Reed Technologies board meeting shows challenging territory even for those accustomed to corporate warfare. Your presence might be used against her. She's right, Alexandra admitted reluctantly. My father would twist your involvement, use it to paint me as emotionally compromised, easily manipulated. So I'm supposed to just wait here while you face him alone. Not alone. Eleanor's voice carried quiet certainty. Never alone again. Emma tugged at Alexandra's hand. You should take Mr. Hopscotch. He's very brave. He helps me when I'm scared. Alexandra blinked back unexpected tears as she accepted the threadbare rabbit. I would be honored, Emma. I'll keep him safe, I promise. Martinez appeared at the doorway, his expression grave. Miss Reed, we've received word that James Thornton has arrived at headquarters. He's demanding to speak with Maxwell immediately. Then we need to move now, Eleanor decided, before Maxwell can secure Thornton's continued support. The moment of departure arrived too quickly. Alexandra found herself lingering, caught between worlds. Jack, if anything happens. His fingers brushed her cheek, the gesture conveying what words couldn't. We'll be here. No matter what happens in that boardroom, you have a home to come back to, if you want it. It's the only thing I'm certain I want. Alexandra's voice dropped to a whisper. The rest of the company, the position, the power, I'm doing it because it's necessary, not because I desire it. Then remember that. When you're facing them, remember what truly matters. Their goodbye was brief. Anything more felt like tempting fate. Eleanor's security team escorted them to the waiting cars, the hotel staff maintaining discreet professionalism despite the unusual procession. As the elevator doors closed between them, Jack caught a final glimpse of Alexandra, Mr. Hopscotch, tucked into her designer briefcase, her eyes fixed on his until the last possible moment. Emma slipped her hand into Jack's. She'll be okay, Daddy. Alexandra's like the princess in my story who looks soft but has a sword hidden in her sleeve. Jack squeezed his daughter's hand. When did you get so wise, Em? I've always been wise. You just weren't listening properly before. The Reed Technologies headquarters dominated the city skyline, 60 floors of gleaming glass and steel projecting power and permanence. Alexandra had walked through its revolving doors countless times, but never like this. Never as anything but Maxwell Reed's obedient daughter. Eleanor moved with silent confidence beside her, nodding to security guards who stared in shocked recognition at the woman they'd been told was dead. Martinez and Chen flanked them, carrying briefcases containing evidence that could destroy the empire Eleanor's husband had built and her son had corrupted. In the executive elevator, Alexandra felt her heartbeat accelerate. The board members, how many can we count on? 4 have privately expressed support for our position. 3 remain loyal to Maxwell. The remaining 5 will vote with whoever presents the most compelling case. Eleanor adjusted her jacket with meticulous precision. Remember, Alexandra, this isn't just about the evidence. It's about vision. Your father has always led through fear and intimidation. Show them a different path. The elevator doors opened directly into the executive suite where Sophia Maxwell's longtime assistant sat at her desk. Her professional composure cracked at the sight of Eleanor Reed, color draining from her face as though she'd seen a ghost. Mrs. Reed, but you're dead, not quite Sophia, though my son certainly tried his best. Eleanor's smile contained decades of refined intimidation. The board is assembled. Sophia nodded mutely, her eyes darting to the closed boardroom doors. Mr. Reed instructed that no one was to interrupt. Mr. Thornton is with him. Perfect timing, then. Eleanor moved toward the doors with Alexandra at her side. No announcements necessary. I believe in the power of a dramatic entrance. The boardroom fell silent as they entered. 12 men and women in expensive suits surrounded the massive table, their expressions shifting from annoyance at the interruption to shock as Eleanor Reed glided into the room like an avenging spirit. At the head of the table, Maxwell Reed stood frozen, his presentation forgotten mid-sentence. James Thornton, seated at his right hand, looked between father and daughter with dawning comprehension. Mother, Maxwell's voice barely carried across the room. This is impossible. Hello, Maxwell. Eleanor's voice rang clear and strong. I believe the word you're searching for is improbable, not impossible. A distinction you might have appreciated had you paid more attention in your philosophy classes at Harvard. Alexandra stepped forward, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. Father? Maxwell recovered quickly, his shock transforming into the cold calculation that had built Reed Technologies into a powerhouse. Alexandra, I see you found your grandmother. How touching. Perhaps now we can proceed with the business at hand. The Thornton merger awaits your signature. I'm afraid that won't be happening. Alexandra placed her briefcase on the table, her fingers brushing against Mr. Hopscotch hidden inside. Not today, not ever. The tension in the room thickened as Maxwell's expression hardened. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I apologize for this theatrical interruption. My daughter has been experiencing some emotional difficulties lately, and my mother, his lips twisted into a cold smile, has been medically unfit for some time. I'll have security escort them both to my private office where we can address these family matters appropriately. Before you do that, Eleanor interjected smoothly, the board might be interested in reviewing certain documents we've brought. Documents that outline a pattern of fraud, tax evasion, and illegal financial manipulations spanning the past decade. Martinez and Chen began distributing folders to each board member. Maxwell lunged forward, attempting to intercept them, but was too late. This is absurd. These documents are clearly fabricated. My mother has been in a care facility, suffering from dementia and paranoid delusions. A care facility where I was held against my will after discovering your systematic looting of company resources. Eleanor's voice cut through his protest like a scalpel. A discovery that prompted you to declare me dead to the world while you consolidated your control. The board members were already scanning the documents, their expressions growing increasingly grave. Alexandra watched as decades of carefully cultivated respect for Maxwell Reed began to crumble beneath the weight of irrefutable evidence. Thornton broke the stunned silence. Maxwell, what the hell is this? These records show Reed Technologies has been falsifying environmental compliance reports for our Atlantic shipyard project. He slapped the folder down. If this is true, my company could face billions in liability. It's all there, Alexandra confirmed, addressing the board directly. Offshore accounts, bribes to government officials, environmental violations systematically concealed. My grandmother discovered this corruption 5 years ago and threatened to expose it. My father responded by having her declared legally dead and committed to a private facility under a false identity. Maxwell's facade of control began to crack. This is a coordinated attack on me, on this company. My ungrateful daughter, angry that I arranged an advantageous marriage for her. My senile mother bitter that I succeeded where my father failed. If you believe their lies, they're not lies, Maxwell. Eleanor opened her own folder, removing a USB drive. This contains recorded conversations between you and various officials accepting bribes. Surveillance footage from the facility where I was held. Banking records showing the systematic theft of company resources. Vivian Chen, the board's most senior member, adjusted her glasses as she examined the documents. These appear authentic, Maxwell. The board needs to take these allegations seriously. This is a coup, Maxwell hissed, his composed exterior fully shattered now. My own family conspiring against me, manipulating the board with fabricated evidence. Alexandra stepped forward, claiming the space her father had always occupied. This isn't about family grievances. This is about the future of Reed Technologies. The path my father has chosen leads to inevitable disaster, legal, financial, and ethical. We're offering an alternative. We, Maxwell sneered. You've never worked a day in your life, Alexandra. You know nothing about running this company. I know that integrity isn't a luxury we can't afford. I know that sustainable success requires more than quarterly profits extracted through corruption. Alexandra felt a strange calm settling over her, the lessons of her business education merging with the wisdom she'd gained in Jack's small apartment. I've spent my life preparing for a role I never wanted because you never saw me as a person, only as a tool for your ambitions. But now I'm choosing to use that preparation for something worthy. The board members exchanged glances. Alexandra could read the calculation in their eyes, weighing loyalty against self-preservation, tradition against the damning evidence before them. What exactly are you proposing? Robert Michaels, the board's vice chairman, finally asked. Eleanor stepped forward. The immediate removal of Maxwell Reed as CEO and board chairman. The appointment of Alexandra Reed as interim CEO while the board conducts a proper evaluation of leadership options. And full cooperation with authorities regarding the legal violations documented in those files. Cooperate with authorities. Maxwell's laugh was bitter. You'd destroy this company out of spite. No, father. We'd save it through honesty. Alexandra met his gaze without flinching. The violations will come to light eventually, Watchley. By addressing them proactively, we control the narrative. We make restitution. We implement new safeguards. We emerge stronger, cleaner. Pretty words from a naive girl. Maxwell turned to the board. You're actually considering this, replacing me with my inexperienced daughter based on accusations from a woman who's been declared legally dead. James Thornton had been unusually quiet, reviewing the documents with growing alarm. Now he stood straightening his tie with deliberate precision. I came here today expecting to finalize our merger, Maxwell. Instead, I discover my company was about to be tied to yours just as these irregularities were likely to become public. He gathered his papers. Under the circumstances, Thornton Industries is withdrawing from merger negotiations immediately. James, don't be hasty. We can discuss. I trusted you, Maxwell. My father trusted your father. That trust appears to have been misplaced. Thornton moved toward the door, pausing beside Alexandra. Ms. Reed, should the board choose to implement the changes your grandmother suggests, Thornton Industries would be open to revisiting potential collaborations on more equitable terms, of course. The implied vote of confidence shifted the atmosphere in the room. Board members who had been hesitant now leaned forward, sensing the changing winds of power. Maxwell's face contorted with fury. This is absurd. You can't possibly... He stopped abruptly, a new calculation forming behind his eyes. Fine, you want to play hardball? Let's talk about Jack Harris. Alexandra felt ice form in her veins. Jack has nothing to do with this. Doesn't he a struggling waiter with a sob story and a cute kid? How convenient that he appeared just when you were at your most vulnerable. Maxwell's smile was predatory. Did you know he was once engaged to the daughter of Westmore Banking's CEO? That he walked away from a promised executive position to marry some waitress? He's had a taste of wealth before, Alexandra. He knows exactly how to manipulate women from our world. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Jack had mentioned being disowned for choosing love over his family's expectations, but he'd never specified the details, never mentioned connections to banking royalty. You had him investigated? Alexandra struggled to keep her voice steady. Of course I did. You think I wouldn't research the man harboring my daughter Harris is no innocent hero? He's an opportunist who's been down this road before. Last time he got a waitress. This time he is aiming higher an heiress. Quite the promotion. Eleanor touched Alexandra's arm. Don't let him distract you. This is what he does, finds emotional pressure points and exploits them. Alexandra nodded, gathering herself. My personal relationships are irrelevant to these proceedings. The evidence before you stands on its own merits. Does it? Maxwell addressed the board. My daughter disappears for 4 days and returns with wild accusations influenced by a man with clear financial motives and a mother who has been legally dead for 5 years. Is this really the basis on which you would overturn 2 generations of successful leadership? Uncertainty flickered across several board members' faces. Alexandra recognized the dangerous moment, her father regaining ground, sowing doubt. I understand your concerns, she acknowledged, addressing the wavering members directly. This is an unprecedented situation. But the evidence isn't just my grandmother's word against my father's. It's documented in company records and banking transactions, in communications that can be independently verified. She straightened, channeling the confidence Emma had attributed to her. I'm not asking you to make me CEO because I'm Maxwell Reed's daughter. I'm asking you to remove Maxwell Reed as CEO because he has betrayed his fiduciary duty to this company and placed all of us at legal risk. Robert Michaels cleared his throat. I propose we call for an immediate vote on temporary leadership while these allegations are investigated. According to bylaws, we need a 2/3 majority to remove a sitting CEO under emergency provisions. Maxwell's eyes narrowed. And if this vote fails, I'll remember who stood against me. Is that a threat, Maxwell? Vivian Chen's voice cut through the tension. Because it sounds remarkably like one which rather supports your daughter's characterization of your leadership style. The boardroom fell silent as Michaels called for the vote. One by one, the members declared their positions. 4 immediate votes for removal, 3 staunch supporters of Maxwell. The remaining 5 wavered, weighing decades of loyalty against the damning evidence before them. When the final vote was tallied, Maxwell Reed had been removed as CEO by a margin of 7-5. The victory was narrow but definitive. This isn't over, Maxwell promised, his voice deadly quiet. Not by a long shot. Actually, it is. Eleanor nodded to Martinez, who opened the boardroom door. 2 men in dark suits entered, their expressions professionally neutral. These gentlemen are from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They have some questions about certain offshore transactions detailed in those files. Maxwell's face drained of color. You called the authorities before the vote. You've planned this from the beginning. I've planned this for 5 years, Maxwell, ever since you tried to bury me along with your crimes. Eleanor's voice held no triumph, only weary determination. The board has made its decision. Now you'll answer for yours. The federal agents escorted Maxwell from the boardroom, his final glare at Alexandra promising retribution that would never come. The board members dispersed quickly, already distancing themselves from the fallen CEO, several, pausing to congratulate Alexandra with transparent attempts to curry favor. When the room finally emptied, Alexandra sank into a chair, the adrenaline of confrontation giving way to exhaustion. I can't believe it's over. Not over, Eleanor corrected gently. Just beginning. The hard work starts now, rebuilding the company's integrity, addressing the legal challenges, establishing your leadership. Alexandra touched her briefcase where Mr. Hopscotch waited patiently. I need to tell Jack about the vote, about what my father said regarding his past. Do you doubt him because of Maxwell's accusations? No, but I need to understand why he didn't tell me himself. Alexandra stood, smoothing her suit with hands that still trembled slightly from the confrontation. Will you handle things here? There's somewhere I need to be. Eleanor nodded, understanding in her eyes. Go. The company has survived without proper leadership for years. It can manage a few more hours. The journey back to the hotel seemed interminable. Alexandra's thoughts churning with questions about Jack's past, about her future as Reed Technologies' interim CEO, about whether the fragile connection they'd formed could survive these new revelations. When she finally reached the suite, she found Jack and Emma by the window, his arm around his daughter's shoulders as they watched the city below. The tableau struck her with painful clarity, their completeness, their perfect unit of 2. How could she possibly fit into that without disrupting its fundamental balance? Emma spotted her first, breaking free from Jack's embrace to rush toward her. Alexandra, did you win? Did you beat the bad guys? Alexandra knelt to embrace her, inhaling the simple scent of children's shampoo and innocence. We did. The board voted to remove my father as CEO. Does that mean you're the boss now? Emma's eyes widened with the magnificence of this concept. For now, at least. There's a lot of work ahead to fix the problems my father created. Jack approached more cautiously, reading the complexity in Alexandra's expression. Congratulations. I knew you could do it. Did you? Alexandra stood, maintaining a slight distance between them. My father had some interesting things to say about you, Jack. About your past. His expression shuddered, confirming the truth before he spoke. Let me guess he told you about my former engagement, about Westmore Banking. He said you were engaged to the CEO's daughter, that you walked away from an executive position. Alexandra searched his face. Why didn't you tell me this when I told you about my situation? It seems relevant. Jack moved to the window, his reflection fragmenting across the city skyline. Because it wasn't the same. Caroline Westmore and I were together for 3 years. Our families had planned our merger. He smiled mirthlessly at the parallel since we were in college. But I never loved her. Not Ryan. Then why get engaged? Expectation, momentum, fear of disappointing my family. Jack turned to face her. Sound familiar? Alexandra felt a flicker of understanding. What changed? I met Melissa. She worked at a coffee shop near the financial district. Nothing dramatic, no love at first sight, no grand passion that swept me away. Just conversations that felt real. Laughter that wasn't calculated to impress the right people. A chance to be myself without constantly measuring up to someone else's standards. Emma had retreated to the sofa, sensing adult complexity beyond her understanding, but her presence kept their conversation measured, thoughtful. So you broke your engagement for her. I broke it because I realized I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life, marrying someone for reasons that had nothing to do with love or compatibility. Melissa just happened to show me what genuine connection felt like. Jack's eyes held Alexandra's. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I was drawing parallels between us. Your situation with Thornton was about corporate control, not just family expectations. The stakes were different. And the fact that both Melissa and I came from wealthy families, that didn't seem worth mentioning. Jack's expression tightened. Is that what your father implied, that I have a pattern of targeting wealthy women? He called you an opportunist, said you were manipulating me. And you believed him. Alexandra felt the accusation like a physical blow. I'm here, aren't I? Asking you directly instead of accepting his version. The tension between them vibrated like a plucked string. Emma looked up from her coloring book, sensing the discord. Are you fighting, Daddy? Says people who care about each other sometimes fight, but they always try to understand each other's hearts. Her innocent wisdom punctured their defensive postures. Jack's shoulders relaxed first, followed by Alexandra's. Your father's not entirely wrong, Jack admitted quietly. I did walk away from wealth and position once before, but he's wrong about why. I chose love over money and status. I chose authenticity over expectation. And I've never regretted it, not even during the hardest times after Melissa died. Alexandra moved closer, closing the physical gap between them. I believe you. I just needed to hear it from you. I should have told you myself. I just didn't want my past to complicate what was happening between us. Jack hesitated. So, CEO of Reed Technologies, that's quite a development. Interim CEO, Alexandra corrected. The board will conduct a formal search process. I might not be their final choice. But you want the position? The question hung between them, laden with implication. If Alexandra embraced her corporate destiny, could there still be room for Jack and Emma in her life? Could she balance boardroom battles with bedtime stories? I want to fix what my father broke, she answered carefully. I want Reed Technologies to become something better than it's been, more ethical, more responsible. Whether I'm the right person to lead that transformation long-term, I'm not sure yet. Jack studied her face. You'd be good at it. I've seen how quick you are, how you understand people's motivations. Those are leadership qualities that can't be taught. Maybe, but I've also discovered there are things I never learned in business school. Things about real life, about what truly matters. Alexandra glanced at Emma, who had returned to her coloring. Your daughter has been my best teacher these past few days. She has that effect on people. Pride softened Jack's voice. So what happens now, between us, I mean? Alexandra took a deep breath. That depends. My life is about to become very complicated. Board meetings, legal depositions, media scrutiny. It's not the kind of chaos I should be dragging you and Emma into. We've handled your father's investigators and corporate lawyers. I think we can manage a few board meetings. Jack reached for her hand. Unless you're looking for a graceful exit now that you've reclaimed your position. Is that what you think, that I was using you for shelter until I could return to my real life? I don't know what to think. 4 days ago, you were a stranger who walked into my diner. Now you're the CEO of a multinational corporation with billions in assets. It's a lot to process. Emma appeared at their side, inserting herself between them with the confidence of childhood. Are you going to leave us now that you're a boss lady? Alexandra knelt to Emma's level, the question striking deeper from her innocent lips. I don't want to leave you, Emma, ever. But my job is going to be very demanding for a while. I'll have meetings and travel and responsibilities that might keep me away sometimes. Like Daddy's extra shifts at the diner. Something like that, yes. Emma considered this with solemn deliberation. Well, Daddy always comes home even after extra shifts. You could come home too. On the simple solution offered with a child's perfect clarity hung in the air between them. Home. Such a small word for such an enormous concept. Jack's phone rang, breaking the moment. He answered, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Slow down, Mike. What happened? He listened intently. When? No, don't go back in. Call the police if you haven't already. We'll figure something out. Alexandra watched his face drain of color. What is it? What's wrong? Jack ended the call. His voice tight. That was Mike Murphy. Someone broke into our apartment, trashed the place completely. My father. Alexandra felt cold certainty. This is his retaliation. Mike said there were papers scattered everywhere, furniture slashed. He went up to check after seeing the door ajar. Jack ran a hand through his hair. Everything we own. Emma's lower lip trembled. My books, Mr. Hopscotch's family. Alexandra reached into her briefcase, producing the stuffed rabbit. Mr. Hopscotch is right here, safe and sound. He helped me be brave today. Emma clutched the toy to her chest, momentarily consoled, but Jack's expression remained bleak. We can't go back there. Not now, maybe not ever. If Reed is willing to do this, he won't be doing anything else. Alexandra straightened, decision crystallizing. My father was taken into federal custody this afternoon on multiple fraud charges. The damage to your apartment was his last act of spite. Even so, we need to find somewhere else to stay. A hotel maybe, until we can figure it out next steps. Alexandra hesitated, then committed to the leap. I have a better idea. My grandmother owns a house in Brookside, not far from Emma's school. It's been sitting empty while she was away. There's plenty of room for all of us. Alexandra, we can't. It's not charity, Jack. It's pragmatism. You need a safe place to stay. I need to be close to headquarters during this transition period, and Emma needs stability. Alexandra took his hands in hers. It doesn't have to be permanent, just until we figure out our next steps. Together. Emma tugged at it. Jack's asleep. Can we, Daddy? Please, I bet Alexandra's grandma's house has a garden. Maybe we could plant flowers like the ones Alexandra showed me in the picture. Jack looked between them, his daughter's hopeful face, Alexandra's tentative offer, and felt the weight of decision. Pride warred with practicality, independence with the undeniable fact that their lives had become irreversibly intertwined. Temporarily, he conceded, until we can find our own place, and I'll pay rent a fair market rate. Alexandra bit back a smile at his stubborn independence. We can discuss terms later. Right now, let's go see what can be salvaged from your apartment. The damage was even worse than Mike had described. The small apartment had been systematically destroyed, furniture overturned, and slashed dishes shattered, Emma's books torn and scattered. Jack stood in the doorway, his face hardening as he surveyed the wreckage of their home. Emma pressed against his leg, eyes wide at the destruction. Why would someone do this, Daddy? Because some people think hurting others makes them powerful. Jack lifted her away from the broken glass littering the entryway. But it doesn't. It just shows how weak they really are. Alexandra moved carefully through the chaos, cataloging the destruction with growing anger. This calculated violence against a child's home revealed her father's true nature more clearly than any corporate malfeasance. "We'll replace everything," she promised. "Every book, every dish." Jack shook his head, kneeling to retrieve a framed photograph now separated from its shattered glass. Emma, as a toddler, held in Melissa's arms. "Some things can't be replaced, but they can be preserved." He tucked the photo carefully into his pocket. "We don't need much from here. Close important documents. The rest is just stuff." They worked quickly, filling a few suitcases with salvageable possessions. Emma discovered that most of her stuffed animals had survived hidden in a toy chest that had been overturned but not destroyed. Each rescued toy felt like a small victory against senseless cruelty. As they prepared to leave, Martinez called with an update. Alexandra stepped into the hallway to take the call, returning moments later with grim satisfaction. "My father has been denied bail. The judge cited flight risk and the severity of the charges." She surveyed the destroyed apartment. "I'll have someone document this damage. It will be added to the list of charges against him." Jack nodded, too emotionally drained for triumph. "Let's go. There's nothing left for us here." Eleanor's Brookside home proved to be a revelation, not the ostentatious mansion Alexandra had feared might intimidate Jack, but a gracious craftsman-style house set back from the street behind mature oak trees. Gardens in need of attention surrounded the property, and a wooden swing hung from a massive branch, promising summer afternoons of simple pleasure. "Your grandmother lived here?" Jack asked as they approached the wide front porch. "I expected something more." "Pretentious," Alexandra smiled. "Grandmother always preferred comfort over display. She chose this house after grandfather died, said it felt more like a home than our family estate ever did." Emma had already discovered the swing, her delight momentarily eclipsing the trauma of their destroyed apartment. "Daddy, look. It's just like the one at the park, but it's all ours." Inside, the house welcomed them with warm wood paneling, built-in bookshelves, and comfortable furniture draped with protective sheets. Sunlight streamed through stained glass accents, casting rainbow patterns across hardwood floors. "There are 5 bedrooms upstairs," Alexandra explained, pulling sheets from furniture as they moved through the rooms, and a library that could serve as a home office. The kitchen was renovated about 10 years ago, so it has all modern appliances. Jack trailed behind her, overwhelmed by the sudden transition from their destroyed apartment to this gracious home. "Alexandra, this is too much. We can find a small apartment closer to Emma's school." "Is it the house that bothers you or what it represents?" Alexandra turned to face him directly. "Because if it's about money or social status, we need to address that now. My position at Reed Technologies isn't going away. Neither is my family's wealth, complicated as it might be. If that's an insurmountable barrier between us, it's not about the money itself." Jack struggled to articulate feelings he'd buried since Melissa's death. "It's about balance, partnership. When one person brings everything to the table, home, financial security, social position, what does the other person contribute? What do I bring to this equation that you couldn't have without me?" Emma had wandered off to explore the house, leaving them alone with this fundamental question hanging between them. Alexandra moved closer, her voice dropping. "Perspective, grounding, the wisdom to see beyond corporate politics and social expectations. The courage to walk away from wealth once before, which means I can trust that you're with me for who I am, not what I own." Her hand found his. "You and Emma gave me shelter when I had nowhere else to go. Now let me return that gift. Not because I'm trying to buy your affection, but because I have resources that can help the people I care about." Jack's resistance wavered, then collapsed. "I'm not used to accepting help. After Melissa died, I had to handle everything alone. It became a point of pride, I guess." "I understand pride. I grew up surrounded by people who measured their worth by their bank accounts and social connections." Alexandra squeezed his hand. "But true strength isn't about refusing help. It's about building something together, each contributing what they can." From upstairs, Emma's voice called out in excitement. "Daddy, Alexandra, come see, there's a room with bookshelves all the way to the ceiling." They followed her voice to discover her in the library, spinning in delighted circles beneath the 2-story ceiling lined with books. The room's grandeur was undeniable, but it was Emma's joy that transformed it from impressive architecture to something magical. "Can I read all of these books?" Emma asked, eyes wide with possibility. "As many as you want," Alexandra promised. "My grandmother collected children's books from around the world. Some of them were my favorites when I was your age." Jack watched his daughter's excitement, his final reservations crumbling. This wasn't just about wealth or privilege, it was about opportunities, experiences, horizons expanded beyond what he could provide alone. "So we're really doing this," he asked quietly, "living here, figuring out what comes next together, if you're willing." Alexander's voice held no pressure, only invitation. One day at a time. Emma had discovered a window seat overlooking the garden, already claiming it as her special reading nook. "Daddy, can we plant flowers out there?" Alexandra said her grandma had violets. "Maybe we could make a rainbow garden with all different colors." "I think that's a wonderful idea," Jack agreed, his decision made. A fresh start deserves new flowers. The following weeks unfolded in a whirlwind of transitions. Alexandra dove into her role as interim CEO, implementing transparency measures and cooperating with federal investigations into her father's financial crimes. The board, initially skeptical of her leadership, grew increasingly supportive as Reed Technologies' stock stabilized and client confidence returned. Jack focused on creating stability for Emma, establishing new routines in their temporary home while searching for meaningful work that wouldn't compromise his self-respect. When Eleanor suggested he lead the newly established Reed Family Foundation, using his first-hand experience of financial hardship to shape programs supporting single parents, he surprised himself by accepting. Emma flourished her natural resilience, helping her adapt to their new circumstances. She planted violet seeds in the garden, with Eleanor's guidance celebrated when Alexandra returned from late meetings and confidently introduced Jack as "my daddy" and Alexandra as "my Alexandra" to new friends from school. Their family structure remained undefined, evolving organically without forced labels or expectations. Alexandra split her time between corporate headquarters and the Brookside house, gradually bringing more personal belongings from her penthouse until her presence felt permanent rather than transitional. 6 months after the boardroom confrontation, Alexandra stood at her office window watching autumn leaves drift across the Reed Technologies campus. The interim tag had been removed from her title 2 months earlier, the board unanimously confirming her as CEO after the company's most ethical and profitable quarter in years. Eleanor entered without knocking, their relationship having evolved into a comfortable partnership of mutual respect. The foundation's first fundraiser exceeded projections by 40%. "Your Jack has quite a talent for connecting with donors." Alexandra smiled at the possessive pronoun. "He speaks their language now, but he still remembers what it was like on the other side. That authenticity resonates with people. You've both built something remarkable in a very short time." Eleanor settled into a visitor's chair. "The question is, what comes next?" "What do you mean?" "Alexander, you've been living in a sort of limbo, running the company, brilliantly supporting Jack's work with the foundation, creating a stable home for Emma. But you haven't made any permanent decisions about your personal life." Alexandra touched the small velvet box hidden in her desk drawer, a purchase she'd made weeks ago, but hadn't found the courage to present. "I'm waiting for the right moment." "There is no perfect moment, my dear. There's only now and the courage to claim the future you want." Eleanor rose to leave. "The car is waiting downstairs. Go home early today. Some things matter more than quarterly reports." The Brookside house glowed with warm light as Alexandra approached, fallen leaves crunching beneath her feet. Through the front window, she could see Jack and Emmett in the kitchen, flour dusting their clothes as they prepared dinner together. The scene struck her with its precious ordinariness, this simple domestic moment representing everything her childhood had lacked. She paused on the porch, savoring the knowledge that she belonged inside, that this unlikely family had become her own. Jack looked up as she entered, flour smudged across one cheek. "You're home early." "I am." Alexandra set down her briefcase, the weight of corporate responsibility falling away. "What are you two creating?" Emma proudly displayed a misshapen lump of dough. "We're making bread. Daddy says it's like magic how it grows when you're not looking." "The best things often grow that way," Alexandra agreed, joining them at the counter. "When you're not watching too closely, just providing the right conditions and trusting the process." Jack's eyes met hers over Emma's head, understanding the metaphor. "Some things do need a little nudge, though." a bit of intentional direction. After dinner, when Emma had gone upstairs to prepare for bed, Alexandra led Jack to the garden where summer's flowers had given way to autumn's more subdued palette. The violet patch Emma had planted remained vibrant, defying the season. "I've been thinking," Alexandra began, her fingers finding the velvet box in her pocket, "about permanence, about choices and futures and what matters most." Jack's expression grew serious. "That sounds like the beginning of a very important conversation." "It is." Alexandra took a deep breath. "When I ran away from my father from the merger, I was running from a future I hadn't chosen. I never expected to find a future I wanted more than anything. And have you found that future?" "I think I have." Alexandra withdrew the box from her pocket, opening it to reveal not a traditional diamond ring, but a wide platinum band inlaid with violet petals preserved in resin. "This isn't just a proposal, Jack. It's a promise that whatever challenges come, corporate pressures, social differences, the complications of blending our worlds will face them together." Jack stared at the ring, emotion rendering him momentarily speechless. "Alexandra, are you sure your world is so different from mine? The board, the social expectations. My world is wherever you and Emma are." Alexandra took his hand. "Everything else is just circumstance. The company, the wealth, the position, their responsibilities, not identity. You helped me understand that." "What about Emma? Have you thought about what this means for her?" "I have. It means promising to love her as my own while honoring Melissa's memory. It means being a parent, not just a friend. It means commitment, Jack, to both of you." From the doorway, Emma's voice startled them both. "Are you asking Daddy to marry you?" Alexandra turned to find Emma in her pajamas. Mr. Hopscotch clutched against her chest. "I am Emma. Is that okay with you?" Emma approached solemnly, studying the ring with critical attention. "It has flowers inside it, like the ones we planted. Violets. They've connected generations of my family, my grandmother, my mother, me. Now they can connect our family too if you want." Emma looked between them, her expression suddenly anxious. "If you marry Daddy, will you be my mom?" The question carried weight beyond its simple words, touching on memory loss, identity, and future. Alexandra knelt to meet Emma's eyes directly. "I will never replace your mom, Emma. She will always be your first mother, the one who gave you life and loved you first. But if you want, I could be your second mom. Different, but still yours." Emma considered this with the serious deliberation only children can bring to life's most profound questions. "I think," she said finally, "that sounds right. Like how Mr. Hopscotch has his original family of rabbits, but now he has us too." Jack laughed, the tension breaking. "Well, if Mr. Hopscotch approves, how can I possibly refuse?" He took the ring from Alexandra's fingers, sliding it onto his hand where it fit perfectly. "Yes, to all of it, marriage, family, building a future together." Alexandra felt tears of relief and joy forming. "Even though I burn toast and can't fold laundry properly." "Even though," Jack confirmed while pulling her close. "We'll figure out the rest as we go, one day at a time." Emma wedged herself between them, creating a three-person embrace that felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Does this mean we're staying in this house forever?" "If that's what we decide together," Alexandra assured her. "This is just a building, Emma. Home is wherever we are together." As twilight deepened around them, the three figures remained entwined in the garden, their unlikely paths converging into a shared future none of them could have imagined just 6 months earlier. Above them, stars appeared one by one, silent witnesses to the creation of a family, bound not by blood or obligation, but by the rarest and most precious commodity of all, a love freely chosen, eyes wide open, hearts fully engaged. In her office at Reed Technologies, Eleanor Reed smiled at the text message on her phone, a simple, "She said yes," accompanied by a photo of 3 smiling faces. She closed her laptop, leaving quarterly projections for another day. Some victories were best savored in the moment, especially those that had been 5 years in the planning. The security guard nodded respectfully as she passed. "Good night, Mrs. Reed. See you tomorrow." "Tomorrow and many days after," Eleanor confirmed. "The future finally looks exactly as it should.